Because I was lonely. Because somewhere deep down I needed to feel alive again. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself it was just a visit. I told myself so many lies that day. Tiny, easy lies that piled up until they crushed the woman I thought I was. And when I stepped inside that house, when the door clicked shut behind me, I knew. Some part of me knew right then. Nothing about that day was going to be harmless. Nothing about that smile was going to be easy, and I was already too far gone to turn around. I'm not proud of what happened next. I don't tell this story because I'm looking for sympathy or forgiveness. I tell it because somewhere out there, someone is standing where I once stood. Someone who feels invisible. Someone who's starving for something they can't even name. Maybe hearing this will help them see the cliff before they take the step I did. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because some stories are too raw, too real, too important to stay buried forever. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happened next. I guess if you really want to understand how it all happened, you have to understand the life I was living before that day. Or maybe I should say, the life I was pretending to live. I'm in my late 30s. Too old to be reckless, too young to feel this invisible. I married a man who, once upon a time, made me laugh so hard my sides ached. A man who used to reach for me across the bed in the middle of the night, just to make sure I was still there. But somewhere along the way, life got busy. Or maybe we just stopped looking at each other. He's always traveling now. Always another meeting, another late night, another excuse that sounds reasonable enough if you don't listen too closely. He says he's doing it for us. For our future. But sometimes, it feels like I'm not even part of that future he's chasing. Sometimes it feels like I'm just furniture in the life he's building. Something useful. Something silent. We have a son, well, my stepson. 19 years old. Quiet. Kind in a way that makes you ache a little when he smiles. He's a good kid. Keeps to himself mostly. Always polite, always respectful. But there's a wall there too. A distance I don't know how to cross. Like he's already learned not to expect too much from the adults in his life. And then there's Jason. His best friend. Jason is different. There's a light in him that hasn't been dimmed yet. Athletic, confident, with this easy charm that makes you forget yourself if you're not careful. The kind of smile that lingers a second longer than it should. The kind of look that makes you feel like you're not invisible anymore. Like maybe someone still sees you. I didn't think much of it at first. Of course I didn't. It was harmless. Just a boy who spent too much time at our house. Loud laughter in the hallway, empty soda cans left on the coffee table, sneakers kicked off at the door without a thought. Signs of life I used to find irritating. But lately, I clung to them. Because the truth is, the silence in our house had started to feel like a second skin. And sometimes, even noise you didn't ask for feels better than being alone with your own emptiness. Our neighborhood looks perfect from the outside. Neatly trimmed hedges. White fences. Birthday banners that hang too long after the parties are over. It's the kind of place where smiles are practiced and secrets grow quiet and fat behind closed doors. Everyone waves. Everyone pretends. And behind one of those perfect doors was me. Smiling. Pretending. Fading. I used to love family dinners. The way everyone's voices would layer over each other, messy and alive. Now the only sound at dinner was the clinking of silverware. A ritual we performed like actors in a play we didn't even believe in anymore. Sometimes I would catch Jason looking at me across the table. Not staring. Not inappropriate. Just noticing, really noticing, the way no one else seemed to anymore. I should have noticed it then. I should have paid attention to the way his gaze lingered just a heartbeat too long. The way his smile flickered, almost like he knew something about me that even I hadn't admitted yet. I should have known. But when you're starving, you don't always question the hand that offers you food. You just reach out and take it. It was a Saturday. The kind of Saturday that feels heavier than it should. When the whole world seems busy making memories you'll never be part of. I was standing in the kitchen, half-heartedly flipping through a magazine I didn't care about, when Jason leaned against the doorway with that easy grin he always wore. "I'm having a few friends over later," he said, casual like he was talking about the weather. "You should stop by if you're bored." I laughed, the kind of laugh you use to hide the ache in your chest. Me? Go hang out with a bunch of teenagers? It sounded ridiculous even as the thought crossed my mind. I told him maybe. He shrugged, smiled again, and disappeared down the hall. I told myself it was nothing. Just Jason being friendly. Just me being foolish for even considering it. But hours dragged by. The house stayed silent. My husband was on a plane somewhere, off chasing the life he'd built without me. The TV played old reruns to an empty living room. The walls felt closer than they should have. The loneliness pressed heavier than usual, like it knew I was weak today. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Jason. "Everyone bailed. You should still come. Would be nice to have someone to talk to." I stared at the screen longer than I should have. I could have said no. I could have put the phone down, gone upstairs, and buried myself in clean sheets and sleep I didn't really need. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, rereading his words. Would be nice to have someone to talk to. And maybe it was the simplicity of it. Maybe it was the way he didn't make it a big deal. Maybe it was the way he saw me when no one else seemed to anymore. Or maybe it was just that I was tired of being the ghost in my own life. I told myself it was innocent. It was just Jason. Just a quick visit. No harm in that. I grabbed my keys before I could overthink it and walked out into the night. Jason's house wasn't far, just a few blocks over. The kind of place you didn't have to lock your door if you didn't want to. The porch light was on when I pulled up, casting a soft, welcoming glow over the steps. I stood there for a moment, hand on the car door, second-guessing everything. I almost turned around. Almost. But then the front door swung open, and Jason leaned out, waving at me with that lopsided grin. "Come on in," he called. And just like that, I stepped out of the car, walked up those steps, and crossed a line I couldn't even see yet. Inside, the house was a mess in the way only young people can pull off, socks half hidden under the couch, empty pizza boxes stacked precariously on the kitchen counter, the smell of cologne and leftover takeout hanging in the air. But somehow, it felt alive. It felt like laughter had soaked into the walls. It felt warm. I didn't realize how cold my own house had become until I stood there, breathing in the chaos of someone else's life. Jason led me to the living room, kicked aside a pile of textbooks to make space on the couch. "Sorry about the mess," he said, laughing. I laughed too, and for the first time in a long time, it wasn't forced. It wasn't polite. It was real. If I had known what was waiting for me behind that door, maybe I would have stayed home. Maybe. But that night, loneliness dressed itself up as company. And I was too tired to tell the difference. I sank into the couch, the cushions a little too soft, swallowing me whole. Jason handed me a can of soda, and for a moment, it really was that simple. Two people, talking about nothing. Movies we had half-watched. Songs that got stuck in your head. Places we swore we'd visit one day, but probably never would. The kind of conversation that feels weightless. Safe. But even then, even through the easy laughter and the clumsy jokes, there was a weight in the room that had nothing to do with the mess. It was the way Jason's eyes stayed on me. Really stayed. Not darting away politely the way most people's did. Not glazing over like my husband's had for years now. Jason was listening. Like every word I said mattered. Like he was memorizing the sound of my voice, the shape of my smile. And somewhere deep inside me, something cracked. I shifted on the couch, suddenly too aware of the way my jeans felt tight around my thighs. The way my hair had flattened from the humid night air. The way my hands fidgeted with the soda tab, even though I wasn't thirsty. I caught myself thinking stupid things. Wishing I had worn something different. Wondering if I looked tired. wondering if he noticed. The guilt was sharp, immediate. Married women don't crave this. Married women don't sit on couches in other people's houses wondering if they still have it. Married women know better. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself it was just loneliness. Nothing more. I was just soaking in a little attention like someone cold standing too close to a fire. That's all it was. That's all it would be. And then Jason said it. Softly. So softly I almost thought I imagined it. "I like your hair like that," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. I blinked at him. Felt my mouth open, then close again. No one had noticed my hair in months. Maybe years. I muttered a thank you, my voice too high, too fast. Like a kid caught doing something wrong. I laughed it off, tried to steer the conversation back to safer waters, but the damage was already done. The words hung there between us, warm and heavy, impossible to pretend away. I told myself he was just being polite. I told myself it didn't mean anything. I told myself 1,000 tiny lies because the truth was too dangerous to touch. But my heart was pounding, loud enough that I was sure he could hear it. And somewhere in the quiet corners of my mind, a question curled itself around my ribs and refused to let go. Why did it feel so dangerous? To be seen? Jason grabbed the remote and flipped through a few channels, stopping on some old comedy movie I barely registered. "Something light," he said, grinning at me like we were just two friends passing time. Like this was still safe. Like we hadn't already crossed some invisible line just by sitting this close, breathing the same heavy air. I nodded, smiled back, pretended the pounding in my chest was from the caffeine. But even as the movie played, even as the room filled with canned laughter and bright colors, I didn't feel lighter. I felt trapped, like the walls had started leaning in, like the couch was too small for all the unspoken things hanging between us. I felt his gaze more than I saw the screen. The weight of it pressed against my skin, hotter, heavier, until I couldn't focus on anything except the way my body was betraying me. The way my pulse raced when our arms brushed just lightly, just enough. A brush that should have been meaningless. Should have been nothing. I pulled away, tucked my legs under me, pretended to be more interested in the movie than I'd ever been in my life. But I didn't leave. I didn't stand up and laugh it off and say I should get going. I stayed. Jason shifted too, closer, but not touching. Not quite. It was me who crossed the distance. Me who leaned in just a little when he made some dumb joke about the movie, pretending it was the punchline that pulled me toward him and not the way he said it, low and warm and meant only for me. He asked questions, small ones at first. What kind of movies did I like? Did I ever wish I could just disappear for a while and start over somewhere no one knew my name? I laughed them off. I kept laughing until the questions stopped being funny. Until he asked, "Do you ever feel invisible?" The words hit harder than they had any right to. They cracked something inside me that I had been holding together with spit and stubbornness. I opened my mouth to lie, to say no, to say I was fine, that I had everything I needed, that I was loved, that I was seen. But nothing came out. Instead, I looked at him. Really looked. And he looked back at me like he already knew the answer. Like he'd known it the whole time. My defenses crumbled. My posture softened. I didn't even realize I was leaning closer until I felt the heat from his body, felt the electricity humming in that tiny space between us that neither of us dared to cross, yet. I reached for the popcorn bowl without thinking. Our fingers brushed. Lingering. Longer than they should have. Neither of us moved. The air between us grew thick. Heavy. Like the whole house was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do next. The room grew smaller. The walls seemed to lean in closer. The couch seemed to tilt toward him, toward the part of me that was already too close to the edge. The air itself felt different. Denser. Like it was waiting for me to make the wrong move. And then, Jason asked a question I can never unhear. Jason turned to me, his voice barely louder than a breath. "You deserve to be seen, Really seen. The words were so soft, so careful, like he was afraid they might shatter if he said them too loud. Or maybe he knew it was me who might shatter. I don't remember leaning in. I don't remember making a choice. One moment, there was still air between us. Still a chance to pull away, to laugh it off, to run. And the next, our faces were too close. Our breath mingled. The whole world faded into a blur that existed only at the edges of my vision. My heart thundered so loudly it drowned out every thought I tried to have. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears, pounding against the walls I had built around myself for years. Walls that cracked and crumbled under the weight of one soft, inevitable moment. Jason didn't move first. He didn't push. He didn't chase. He just waited. Waited for me to do the thing we both already knew I was going to do. And I did. I closed the space between us. The kiss wasn't urgent. It wasn't reckless. It was slow. Deliberate. Devastating in the way only something so gentle can be when you know it's built on everything wrong. It wasn't a kiss between strangers. It was a kiss between two people who had been circling each other without even realizing it. Two people who had been starving for something they couldn't name, couldn't ask for, couldn't admit out loud. I felt the way his hand hovered near my face, but didn't touch. Felt the way his breath hitched like he couldn't believe it was happening either. Felt the way my own body leaned closer, as if it had been waiting for permission to finally feel something again. For a moment, one brief, blinding moment, I let myself forget. I forgot the wedding ring, still warm on my finger. Forgot the house with the empty dinner table waiting for me. Forgot the promises. Forgot the woman I was supposed to be. I forgot everything except the way it felt to be seen. Really seen. Fully, painfully, beautifully seen. When I finally pulled away, it was like waking up in the middle of a nightmare you can't escape. The air between us snapped back into place, colder now. Sharper. And the guilt. The guilt came crashing in like a tidal wave, swallowing me whole. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I had crossed a line I didn't even know I was standing on. And there was no way back to the other side. I don't even remember standing up. One second I was drowning in the heaviness of what we had done, and the next I was stumbling toward the door, my hands clumsy, my breathing ragged. Jason didn't stop me. He didn't call out. He didn't chase. He just sat there, still as a photograph, watching me with eyes that looked too old for his young face. Sad. Resigned. Like he already knew there was no undoing any of it. The night air hit me like a slap when I stepped outside. Cold. Unforgiving. I sucked in a breath that didn't seem to reach my lungs and forced myself down the steps, across the sidewalk, into my car. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the keys. It took me 3 tries to fit them into the ignition. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, staring out at the darkness that had settled over the neighborhood like a thick, smothering blanket. I could still feel the heat of Jason's mouth on mine. Still hear the way he whispered that I deserved to be seen. Still taste the part of myself I had just given away. When I finally drove home, the streets were empty. Just lonely strips of asphalt stretching ahead of me, slick under the yellow glow of the streetlights. My house looked the same as I had left it. Still. Silent. Perfect on the outside. I slipped inside like a thief, half expecting alarms to go off, spotlights to pin me in place. But nothing happened. The world stayed cruelly normal. My husband was in his usual spot, half asleep on the couch, some late-night news droning quietly in the background. He barely glanced up when I came in. Mumbled something about work. Asked if I could grab him a drink before heading upstairs. I stood there, dripping guilt onto the carpet, and realized he didn't see me at all. I could have been anyone. I could have been no one. I went through the motions. Poured him a drink. Tucked myself into bed beside him, my body stiff and foreign under the covers. I lay there, staring into the dark, counting the cracks in the ceiling, wondering how everything could look the same when nothing was. The house groaned and settled around me. The night stretched long and merciless. In the morning, over burnt toast and weak coffee, my stepson wandered into the kitchen, yawning. He smiled at me easy, oblivious. "Jason said you dropped by," he said casually, grabbing a banana from the counter. "Said it was nice to see you smile." I froze, the mug slipping slightly in my hand, sloshing coffee over the rim. Smile. That word. It carved something deep and terrible into my chest. I forced a laugh. Said something meaningless. Felt the blood drain from my face while they both went on like nothing had shifted beneath their feet. But I felt it. I felt the earthquake inside me. The crack that had started so small, splitting wider and wider with every breath I took. There was a new distance now. Between me and my husband. Between me and the boy who had trusted me. Between me and myself. A distance I didn't know how to cross. A distance I wasn't sure I even deserved to cross. And in that space between who I had been and who I had become, I started to disappear. The question started before the sun even came up. Was it loneliness that betrayed me? Was it Jason? Or was it me? I turned them over and over in my mind like stones I couldn't stop touching. No matter how I tried to stack them, to arrange them into something that made sense, they never fit right. None of the answers made me feel less hollow. I replayed every moment. The way his eyes softened when he looked at me. The way his voice dropped low, careful, like he was handling something breakable. The way my hand stayed there on his, longer than it should have. The way my lips found his like it was inevitable, like it was something written before either of us even knew how to read. It wasn't just the kiss that haunted me, it was everything that led to it. Every small betrayal I committed against myself long before our mouths ever met. Every lonely night. Every silence I let grow too large to fill. Every time I told myself it was fine. That I was fine. I imagined telling the truth more times than I can count. Sitting across from my husband at that silent dinner table and spilling everything out between us like shattered glass. But the words rotted before they could leave my mouth. Turned sour on my tongue. Because what could I even say? What apology could stitch back together something that had been tearing at the seams for so long? The self-loathing came in waves. Title: suffocating. But underneath it, underneath the shame, the guilt, the regret, something darker pulsed. A terrifying longing. The memory of being wanted. It clung to me. It burned itself into my skin, into the hollow parts of me that I thought had long since gone numb. It whispered that maybe the worst thing wasn't that I had betrayed someone else. Maybe the worst thing was how much I missed the feeling. Weeks passed. Seasons shifted. People moved through my days like shadows, and I smiled and nodded and played my part, but inside, I was crumbling. I saw Jason sometimes. In town. At the grocery store. Once at a gas station, our eyes locking across the pumps like two guilty secrets who recognized each other instantly. We never spoke. Not once. But the weight of that day hung in every glance we stole. Every hurried look away. Every moment stretched too long by the things we didn't say. It was in the way he carried himself.